Hey there, fellow creators! Welcome back to my channel, where we dive deep into the world of visual effects and motion graphics. I'm your host, Luisa Winters, and today we have an exciting topic to explore: the incredible power of compound effects in Adobe After Effects. Compound effects are the secret ingredient that can transform your projects from ordinary to extraordinary. In this tutorial, we'll uncover the hidden potential of compound effects and show you how to leverage them to create stunning visual experiences. So, what are compound effects? In After Effects, the term compound effects typically refers to effects that require a control layer to work properly. A control layer is a separate layer in the composition that contains controls or parameters for your specific effects. You apply the effect directly to the layer you want to modify, and then you link the effect to the control layer. Let's try it. In After Effects, I already created a project which I called Compound Effects. Let's go ahead and create a brand new composition. Control Command N, and 1920 by 1080, 2997 is good. I'm just going to call it Compound. And here we go. Now, I'm going to create just some text. All right, so I'm going to have a text layer here. I am a text layer. I am going to select all of these characters and make this larger. Maybe change this to Abebas Pro. And now I'll move it here to the middle, maybe even bigger than that, only so that you can see the effects of the compound effect. Now, do this with me. From the exercise files, import the full folder of gradients. If you have not downloaded the exercise files, it's okay. The link to download them is in the description of this video, or simply use your own files. It's okay. All right, to import some files, I'm simply going to double-click here in an empty space in the project panel. And now I'm going to go to the folder that says gradients, and I'm going to import the whole folder. And there it is. I'm just going to put one of the gradients down. It doesn't really matter which one. And I'm just going to make it larger. So I'm going to change the scale of this gradient so that it's as big as the entire composition, because right now it's not as big. And there you go. Now, to the text layer, we're going to apply a displacement map effect. Displacement map. So do this with me. Go to the Effects and Presets panel, which by default is going to be here on the right-hand side. And here in the little search area here, just type the word displace. In fact, you won't even need to finish typing. Right here, I just typed Displa, and here it is, Displacement Map under Distort. And add that effect to the text layer. You can drag it to the timeline, you can drag it to the text layer in the comp, it doesn't really matter. All right, so here we go. I'm going to make this a little bit wider so we can see it better. The first thing that it asks us right here is which the displacement map layer is. You see, this is going to be the control layer, but this doesn't call it control layer even though it is the control layer. So here we go. This is going to be the gradient. So because it needs a control layer, it's always looking at itself, right? So you almost always, not always, but almost always, you have to go here and tell it who the control layer is. And in our case, it's going to be gradient 1. And there you go. And we are good. And now, which are we going to use for horizontal displacement? What are we going to use for vertical displacement? This effect displaces or moves the pixels of the text layer, and it is the pixels of the text layer because we applied it to the text layer according to the information on the control layer. So I'm going to say, hey, you know what? Use the luminance of the control layer for both the vertical and the horizontal displacement. And now we're just going to change this as many pixels as we need to. Do you see how this is now changing depending on what the displacement layer is doing? Now, what happens if we animate the displacement layer? In other words, the control layer, right? So let's press P for position and let's animate it so that it comes from left. And you know what? At around 10 seconds or so, and it goes all the way to the right like that. Notice that it's not really changing anything. And this is because this, the gradient layer, is the control layer, and by default, compound effects cannot see effects applied to the control layer. So let's go back to the displacement map layer here in the Effect Controls panel, all right? So select the text, go to the Effect Controls panel, and where it says Displacement Map Layer, where we told it that it would be Gradient 1, right next to it, tell it to follow Effects and Masks. And do you see how it's still not working? This works with most things, but not all. So my recommendation usually is, hey, you're using a control layer and the control layer is not working, like, well, now, pre-compose it. So select your control layer and now go Layer, Pre-compose, name it Control. Make sure to move all attributes into the new composition. Click OK, and see it now. The beauty of this is that the control layer doesn't even need to be visible. Click on the little eyeball here, and do you see how it's displacing it? All right, that's great. Let's go ahead and delete this now. And let's go back to the project panel and bring in all of these gradient layers. And we're going to overlap them. All right, so select them all. They were already all selected, and I clicked outside of it and deselected it. Don't be a Luisa. Keep them selected and now overlap them. But by how much? So this is 30 seconds. I want them to overlap by, I don't know, maybe 1 second. So let's do this. Let's move our playhead to the 1 second mark. So click on these numbers here and type 100, right? That moves the playhead. Now press and hold Alt, which is Option on the Mac, and press the right bracket. All right, so I want them to come, not to overlap by 1 second, I misspoke before, but to come in every second. All right, so here we go. Right click, Keyframe Assistant, Sequence Layers, do not overlap. Click OK, see it? Not bad, huh? Now, they're still selected. Go all the way to the end. And now, they're still selected. Option, right square bracket. Not too bad. All right, so here we go. Now, they will come one right after the other, but I need for them to fade. So, I could have simply told them to overlap by, whatever this distance is. So 29 seconds, and then assign a cross dissolve. So let's go ahead and do that, because it doesn't really matter what you do with the control layer as long as it does the effect that you need it to do. So they're still selected. Right click, Keyframe Assistant, Sequence Layers, Overlap, by 2900, that's 29 seconds, and now dissolve the front layer, click OK, and now we should have a dissolve in between them. Making sense? If you select these and press U, you're going to see that they have these keyframes already. So we can move the keyframes, one here, one here, one here, and then let's just leave the bottom one. Or we could just move it and then end this composition here, N, and then right click, and then trim comp to work area. And there you go. And this is what we have. See it? Not bad at all. Select all of these. S for scale. Let's make them all bigger. Perfection. And now select them again. Don't deselect them. Don't click outside like I just did. I did the same thing as before. Anyway, now pre-compose them and call it Control. Make sure to move all attributes into the new composition, and voila, we have now our control layer. Go back and select the text layer, go to the Effect Controls panel, and now the control layer will be Control, and we should be able to see what the control layer is doing to the text layer, how it's displacing the pixels. And again, that control layer does not need to be visible. How cool is that? I love it. Anyway, let's go ahead now and create some smoke. So leave your text layer there, delete the control layer. And now let's go ahead and create a solid. Control or Command Y, the color of the solid does not matter. Call it smoke and press enter. Now, with the smoke layer, with the solid layer selected, go to Effect, Simulation, Particle Playground. And now we're going to see these red particles here, which are very not attractive. And they are being produced by something called the cannon. So if you go into the Effect Controls panel and you expand the Particle Playground, the first thing that you will see will be the cannon. Let's go ahead and expand that by clicking on this little caret here. And now I'm going to move the Y position of that cannon so that the point of origin, or the position of it where the particles are being born from, moves to the bottom. And it doesn't have to be all the way to the bottom. In other words, this is good. And now I'm going to change the color of the particles to white. That's easy enough. I'm going to change the barrel radius to about a 50. You know what, a 70 is good. Particles per second is going to be, I don't know, 1,000 or so, give or take. And now we are going to change the direction. Actually, no, we're going to leave the direction where it is. They're going up. Let's add a wiggle expression to the direction of the cannon. So press and hold Alt, click on the stopwatch, type the word wiggle, W-I-G-G-L-E, open parentheses, 1 times per second, comma. This is direction, which is measured in degrees. So I'm going to say 60 degrees, and there you go. So wiggle, open parentheses, 1,60, close parentheses, and there you go. This should be wiggling. But of course, you know, they're born and then they go right back down. Let's go to gravity. So right here, click on gravity and turn the force off. So change that number to a 0, and there you go. Here we have our smoke doing its thing. I love it. In fact, you know what? Let's have it wiggle more. Let's have it wiggle 90. So change the 60 of the wiggle expression to a 90. That's what I'm talking about. I love it. And let's change the particle radius to a 4. Fabulous. I love it. And let's also change the direction random spread to 120 or so. I love it. All right, let's give it more particles per second. So let's give it at least 2,000. And I love that. And now, with that solid or smoke layer selected, add a Gaussian blur. So go to Effect, blur and sharpen, Gaussian blur, and let's blur this until it looks like smoke. Mine is at around 85 or so, and this is perfectly good. Fabulous. There's the smoke, it's doing its thing, and now this will be the control layer. So the control layer does not have to be visible, right? Doesn't have to be visible. Let's go ahead and talk to the text layer now. Let's go to the displacement map, and we'll tell it that the smoke layer is the displacement layer, and you see how it's working beautifully. See it? It's displacing it just beautifully. Now, in addition to that, let's have it appear with the smoke. So to the text layer, let's add another effect. How about transition? Gradient wipe. So under transitions, drag the gradient wipe to the text layer. And do you see what the gradient layer is? That's the control layer. It's going to be the smoke. For this, let's have the smoke visible, and now we're going to change the amount of the transition completion just a little bit. Let's go ahead and make sure that effects and masks is selected here, right? And let's change the transition softness. So let's change this to about, I don't know, a 25 or so, the softness to about a 29 or so. And now we can make the smoke layer invisible, and we can play this from the start. And you can see that the text is not only appearing with the smoke, but it's being displaced with the smoke. So let's go ahead and change the length of this composition so that we can see this a little bit better. So go to composition settings, and instead of 6 seconds, let's have it last 15. So type a 1500, click OK, and now let's zoom out. Select both of these, and now Option, right square bracket, and now we can see this animation from the beginning, and you can clearly see that this is appearing with the smoke, and it's been displaced by the smoke. Compound effects at work. I love it, love it, love it. Let's now talk about another compound effect. Let's make water. All right, let's make water. Here we go. Let's go to the project panel again, and let's create a new composition. So Control or Command N and call it water. In this particular composition, let's create a new solid and call it waves. So Control or Command Y, call it waves. The color does not matter. All right, to this layer, we are going to add an effect called Wave World. So in the Effects and Presets panel, just write the word wave, and Wave World is there. Let's add it. And it just looks like this, which is, that's crazy. That, I mean, it's kind of cool, but it's also kind of crazy. I mean, hello, right? So what's going on here? This is a very old effect. This is an effect from the 90s. I mean, that's so 30 years ago, right? So if we really want to see this in modern computers, I mean, back then computers were like super small, right? They were like little tortoises. But nowadays they're much faster. So we don't need the wireframe preview. Click here and go to the height map. Height map. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. And now we have this crazy waves. They're just doing yay. And these are being generated by two producers, the waves, that is. Producer 1 and Producer 2. We're not going to deal with Producer 2. Let's just keep to Producer 1. You see how there's a position and there's a type, ring, line. let's leave it at ring and let's just keyframe the position. So I'm going to move the playhead all the way to the left, keyframe the position, and do you see this little thingy here? I'm just going to click on it and I'm going to start right here on the top left. I'm going to move in time, say around 1 second, and I'm going to move this guy to the top right. Another second and bottom left. I'm just making like a Z type thing. Zorro. And there you go. And one more for good luck. I'm just going to go back to the beginning and now one more here to the end. So that's it. All right. So I'm just creating some keyframes here for this producer. And this is what this is doing. If I just play it, you can see it like yay. And that's it. I mean, this is just like a generator of waves. I'm going to change the wave height to a little bit more. So this is the length and the width, the angle, the amplitude. I'm going to make this a little bit more contrasting. Let me check it out here. And maybe the frequency so that it comes in a little bit more. That's what I'm talking about. That's wavy. And of course, it ends at around 6 seconds or so. So, we're not going to worry too much about it. But I love it. These are my waves. Create a new solid now. Control or Command Y. Let's make it watercolor. Well, let's name it water. Now let's make it kind of watercolor. So kind of bluish, like, I don't know, yay. Whatever color you think water should be, make it that color. Click OK, and voila, we have it. To this layer, add the effect called caustics. Caustics. So in the Effects and Presets panel, CAUS, and there it is, and add it to the layer. This is another compound effect. So the bottom, okay, what will be the bottom of the pool? This is water, right? So let's imagine it's a pool. Let's not worry about that right now. I'm just going to collapse it. Let's talk to the water. Who is the water surface? Oh, well, the waves. But do you see how it's not working again? At this moment, I would say, hey, pre-compose it. You know what? I'm just going to say, hey, just make sure, click where it says source, and then make sure to select effects and maps. And now it should work okay. Okay, just a little bit of caution here. This doesn't always work. So if you click here and you select effect and masks and you still find that the control layer is not working, pre-compose it, all right? Pre-compose it. Select the layer and then go layer, pre-compose. Right now it's working, so I don't need to do that. But if you find one of those rare occasions in which this does not work, pre-compose it. All right, now we're going to change the smoothing. Let's make it a heck of a lot more smooth. So I'm just maxing that out, and I'm going to change the water depth and the wave height only a little bit. And actually, that's pretty good. Well, maybe the caustic strength. No, I'm going to leave it at 0. You know what? I think I like that better. And there you go. There's my water. But we're not done, because this is a pool. Something should be at the bottom of the pool. So let's go to the project panel and let's import from the Illustrator files the doggy. I like putting the doggy at the bottom of the pool. No, it's not a mean thing. It's not a mean thing. I'm just saying it's not a mean thing. It's like a logo for, hey, doggy, pool cleaning. So in order for a layer to be a control layer, it needs to be in the composition. All right, so it can't be in another composition. It can't be in the project panel. It has to be in this composition. It doesn't need to be visible, but it has to be here. So doggy is here. Now we're going to talk to the water. We're going to go to the Effect Controls panel, and now we're going to go to the bottom. Who is the control layer for the bottom? Well, the doggy. And there it is. Woohoo! And you know what? I'm going to still select Effect and Masks, even though we haven't done anything. And I'm not going to say reflected. I'm going to say once. And I may want to blur it a tiny little bit. And here we go, right? So you have your doggy, and then boom, 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 it's getting really distorted. What if I wanted the doggy to get less distorted? And also, I mean, what gives? This is like so murky. What happened to my blue water? I'm just saying, what happened to my blue water? We're going to fix that in a minute. So here we go. If we go to the water, remember that I changed the water depth. Let's make it more shallow. And as we make it, the water more shallow, the doggy distorts less. Also, if we change the wave height, the doggy distorts less. See it? That's a bottom of a pool. Of course, now, you know, when we get to where the waves no longer go, then it just goes to pot, but it doesn't matter, right? Let's go ahead and now solve why is this water so murky? It is murky because the doggy is untransparent. We need to put a solid, I'm not even renaming it, all the way to the bottom here. And then we need to pre-compose it with the doggy. Right? So here we go. Select both doggy and the new layer that we created, which, by the way, has still the color of the water, which is the same color that we chose before for the water to have. So here we go. Right-click, pre-compose, right? Let's call it doggy control. And now we can double-click that. There you go, doggy control, fabulous. We can go back to water here. And now, if you select the water, let's select here who the control layer is, and it's doggy control. And now it doesn't look as murky. There is still a problem though, and the problem is this. Do you see how the water is kind of sort of like not going the whole way up? That is because that layer is getting distorted as well, and now we're seeing alpha. So the doggy composition needs to be bigger. So we're going to go to the doggy control composition. We're going to go to composition settings. Yes, lock the aspect ratio, just make it bigger, doesn't really matter. And now select the solid, S for scale, make it bigger. Go back to the water, and you don't need to do nothing. It's fixed. How cool is that? I'm just saying, how cool is that? Alrighty, so let's go ahead and select the water and talk about a couple more things. So we already talked about the bottom. I get it. We didn't talk about everything about the bottom. We didn't talk about everything in the water. I am pretty certain you can figure it out. All of these are compound effects in water depth, reflective index, caustics. You know, caustics are like the light reflections that you see like on the side of the pool from the light, from the sun, whatever. So they're like these really harsh reflections of light. All right, so here we go. Let's go ahead and collapse water and bottom, and let's talk about the sky. Yes, you could have a sky here of clouds and all of that. But even more important, let's collapse the sky. We can have lighting, and lighting can be a distant source. It could be a point source. Look at this. We can change the light intensity to be more, right? And then the ambient light to be less. And oh, we have now a romantic doggy. Look at that. Ain't that cool? We can change the color of the light. Instead of white, it can be kind of like yellowish or even more orangey. And now we have more of a romantic doggy right here. See the light? We can change the intensity. Look at the caustics. I know, he's still distorting way too much, but it's okay. You can fix it. I'm not going to fix it now because you get the idea, right? It's like that Illustrator file, which is what the doggy is being distorted by the waves. How cool is that? Anyway, we can change the ambient light and all of those things. But look at this. We can change the material. We can change the reflection. We can change the specular reflection. Specular, that means mirror. Remember when glasses used to be called spectacles? I know, I just dated myself. I am old, but spectacles, mirror. So specular reflection is a mirror reflection. That's too much. And then the highlight sharpens. Because you know what, folks? This doesn't need to be water. I made it water. Could be oil, could be mud, could be chocolate, could be silk, could be blood. Maybe you're doing something for Halloween, you know, could be blood. All you have to do is change the colors and the reflections appropriately, and this can be anything you want it to be. How cool is that? So experiment, right? Do whatever it is that you feel it should be. You don't want to use the doggy? Don't use the doggy. Use your own images. Use your own video. Distort it. Use text. Use a logo. Use anything at all. And you're going to find that you can create a myriad of things with this water effect. Because quite frankly, none of these control layers need to be visible. You can do this however you want to do it. All right? Okay, let's go on now and let's work with particles. So create a new composition, Control or Command N, call it particles. And you know what? We can work with pretty much any particles, but let's just stick with a plain vanilla particle playground. Create a solid, because particles need to live on a layer. So solid, Control or Command Y, call it particles. And there it is. Yeah, it's blue. I get it. Doesn't matter. As soon as we add the particles playground, it's going to disappear. So we're good. All right. So with the layer selected, go to Effect, Simulation, Particle Playground. And there you have it. The same red particles that are being born from the middle. And there you go. Now, the first thing that I want to do is I want for these particles to look like stars. All right, so let's go ahead and create a shape layer that looks like a star. And you know what? Dun, 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 we have a star. Yay, we have a star. And there you go. And actually, I'm leaving my mouse button down. I'm going to make it small. Press and hold Control and then make it, you know, more like yay. And now I'm going to give it more raise. That's the up arrow. And you know what? That's pretty good, just like that. I'm going to select my selection tool, press and hold Control, and now double click the anchor point tool. That centers the anchor point in the middle of that star. And then of course, I'm going to change the color of that star to be yellow. We have a shape layer, which I'm going to rename star, because why not? And I'm going to make it invisible. I want for the particles to be stars. So I'm going to put the cannon to be born, I don't know, actually let me select this here, like outside of the composition here. I want for the direction to be down. I'm just going to type it 180 degrees, so down. Let's see, you can hardly see them. I'm going to change these to white, not because they're going to stay white, they're going to be stars, right? But only so we can see them. There you go. I'm going to change the random spread so they spread out like yay. And you know what? That's pretty good. And I'm also going to change the barrel radius to about yay. So my particles just basically like fall like yay. I'm also going to lower the gravity. Instead of 120, I'm going to have it 20. So that they just like fall. And here we go. Layer map. Layer map. Expand the layer map. Use the layer star. And now our particles are stars. There it is. They're just falling, doing their thing. But there's one thing here that I'm really not digging. And that is that all of my stars are the same size. And by the way, these stars are gargantuan. So you can select a star, press S for scale, and let's just make them smaller. It's like, you know what? Look at that. They're like little sea urchins just falling from the sky. And yes, they're yellow. And yes, you can change them to whatever color you want. You object to a yellow star, make it orange, green, purple, whatever star color you want. What I object to is not the color. I am objecting to the fact that all of my stars are the same size, and I want a little bit of variety here. Here come gradients and compound effects. To the rescue. Woohoo! Let's go to the project panel and let's bring in some of these gradients. I'm going to choose gradient 5 and I'm going to put it in the timeline, and I'm just going to make this as big as the entire composition. All right? So we are going to use the luminance information of this gradient layer, and you can create your own. I mean, you have Photoshop. You can create your gradient, or here, right? It doesn't really matter. Use anything you want. You know what? Go to the beach, take a close-up of the sand, use that as the control layer. It doesn't matter. But right now, let's use these gradients. So it's gradient 5 from the exercise files. And again, if you don't have them, go ahead and download them. It's all good. The download link is in the description of this video. All right, so here we go. I'm talking to the particles. So the particle layer is selected. I'm going to the Effect Controls panel, and I'm going to go to the Persistent Property Mapper. And it's asking me, use what layer as a map? Well, I'm thinking the gradient. Oh, okay. So the red channel is going to affect what? See how it says map red to? How about if we do it to scale? Look at this. Do you see how some of these stars are now bigger than others? And it's based on the brightness of the control layer. So look at this. The control layer doesn't need to be visible. And all I have to do is play this. And do you see how now I have all kinds of different sizes? Compound effects. Gradients are great. And this is a static gradient. Could you imagine if this gradient were moving? I'm thinking much more variety, much more realism. And it's not just the red. Look, map green to what? To the opacity. Why not? Do you see how now some are more transparent than others? This is amazing. I love this stuff. Look at this. I love it, love it, love it. And hey, if you think, oh, you know what, the position of this is to blah, 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 you can have them being born even higher up so that they don't just pop in. They're still popping in, but it doesn't matter, right? So here we go. Let's make this gradient bigger. Let's go back to the particles and tell it effects and maps. Oops, effects and maps. There you go. There you go. Much, much better. And now let's map the blue to what? We could do it to anything, right? Oh, mass, lifespan, character, font size. Oh, yes, because you can use text here. So you can actually change the text, the font size, and the character. It is so cool. Let's do it to kinetic friction. Oh, yeah, now they're not going to fall. They're not going to fall at all. Okay, so how about lifespan? They're just going to die before reaching the bottom, but that's okay. The issue is that you can actually change any of these. So I'm going to do this to kinetic friction. No, I already did that. That didn't work. Let's do scale speed. Oh, yeah, look at this. Oh, they're awesome. And you can also give it a minimum and a maximum. So the minimum is 0. The maximum is going to be, I don't know, 0.2. Much better. Oh, yeah. Much, much better. And that's the persistent property mapper. What about the ephemeral or ephemeral I actually don't know how to pronounce this. I'm going to say ephemeral, but I'm probably wrong. Look at this, map red 2. You can keep on mapping just the X or the Y. And look at this, map it to, actually, let me go, this is going to be to the gradient, the source, effects and maps, and then map green to the Y. And see it? So you can really create your own varieties on your particles by using these control layers. All right, let's do just one more and then we'll call it quits. You can just experiment with these, have fun. Really, compound effects are so much fun, it's not even funny. But let's do one more. Create a new composition and call it Shatter. And then here, just type in some stuff. Shatter is good. I'm just going to type that. And I'm just going to make it bigger because why not? And apply the shatter effect to this. So in effects and presets, just type in the word shatter and apply it to the text. This is another one of those effects that is like super ancient. I mean, it's super old, right? So, you know, the view. Let's go to the rendered, all right? So here we go. The shape, instead of the pattern being bricks, because see, this is supposed to shatter, see it? Instead of being bricks, let's use custom. So if you expand shape, go to pattern. By default, it's going to say bricks. Choose custom, and then choose itself. Look at this. Then it shatters using its own shape. See what I mean? So it shatters using the letters of the word shatter because it's looking at itself, right? You can change the direction, the origin, and of course the extrusion depth. We are not on 3D. I'll have you know. See, this is still 2D. So this is kind of like a pseudo 3D type thing, but you can do a lot of cool things in here. So this is the thing. This is the thing. It's shattering because there is a force here. Shut the force off. So the strength, 0. And now it's just going to fall, right? Change the radius and the depth, all of those things to 0. And also of force 2. Change it to 0. And now this is 2D. But this is 3D and it's not shattering. Look at this. There is gradients, physics, texture, and cameras. Let's go to the camera position first. So there is an X rotation. Look at that. Let's leave it like that. There's a Y rotation. Let's leave it like yay. And there's a Z rotation. Let's leave it like yay. There's also a Z position. All of these can be keyframed. I'm not really going to keyframe it because, you know, I'm not going to do that right now, but they can be keyframed. I'm just saying, so XY position, I'm just going to center this a little bit more. What interests me more is the textures. Look at this. The front layer can be a layer. So the front of the text can be a layer, can be a video, can be anything you want it to be. So look at this. If we go to the project panel here and we import some videos, let's go ahead and import some videos from the exercise files. Let's import, I don't know, branch and leaves, pan village, and use foreground element, right? And let's add all 3 of those videos to the timeline, all right? Let's select them, S for scale, and in fact, Let's go and make him much longer. So I'm just going to stretch him so that they last the entire composition and they don't need to be visible. So I'm just going to turn them off. These are going to be the control layers for the shatter effect, right? But I mean, it's neither here nor there, right? Look at this. The layer for the front is going to be a layer, and which layers are going to be? Branch and leaves. There you go. Look at that. The branch and leaves, let me go to the camera position and change the X rotation here so you can see it. The branch and leaves is actually the front of that text. I'm just saying, right? So I'm going to do that. The side mode is also going to be a layer, and it's going to be the pan village. There you go. And then the back. Yes, we can even assign the back. It's going to be the use foreground element. My whole point here is that you have now text that is 3D. The front is one layer, the side is another layer, and the back is another layer, and we have lighting. We have lighting. How cool is that? Look at this. You can change the intensity of the light. You can change the color of the light. Like, you know what, let's make it kind of, you know what, more orangey. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And we can change the ambient light to more. And I can animate this whole thing. I'm not going to, but I can animate this whole thing. Look at this. Because the video is playing, I'm getting all these textures on this text or logo or whatever it is, illustration, you get it, where the front is one thing, the side is another thing, the back is another thing, and I can blur the front and the back and the sides and all of that. I can make it look however I want. I can add lights, I can animate it and all of that, and I'm still on 2D. Compound effects, they are the bomb. I absolutely love them. Congratulations on completing my tutorial on mastering compound effects in After Effects. You have learned invaluable techniques to create mesmerizing visual effects and animations. Now, armed with the power of control layers and advanced effects, it's time to unleash your creativity and bring your ideas to life. Remember to practice and experiment with different combinations of effects to create unique and stunning visuals. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more tutorials and creative inspiration. Thanks for watching and happy creating!